Hello. Well, I did promise the boss I wouldn't try to do any more funny ones, but there you go. We're still in Sydney, as you can see, and it's a bit of a quiet town at the moment and could get a little bit quieter with 98 cases reported today. In terms of markets, we're seeing a little bit of hesitation in gold, and I think that's just giving all of you who missed out on the initial rally another chance to get in. The Australian dollar is a one-way street at the moment, and that's likely to remain the case. That's been a great observation that we've made, touch wood, and we'll see how that continues to run. The US dollar really is very firm, and the more the hedge fund industry in New York, and remember there's a one block by one block area that has over sort of 2,000 hedge funds worth over $1 billion, and obviously the numbers go way up. So it's a real group think there at times in New York. So that hedge fund industry, of course, some of the more lateral thinkers are in New Jersey or elsewhere in California, Denver, etc. But that New York group think hedge fund group, they're probably just going to get increasingly concerned about Delta. Remember, we've been saying for a few weeks now, twin tsunamis, Delta and inflation. That's what we're seeing. We're seeing more of the big institutions, other big institutions start to follow our view in terms of speaking about, talking about, discussing at least that the economic peak for the United States may well be behind it. We've been calling that in advance, and it's exactly the sort of economic rolling over behavior we're expecting. So coming back to markets, the US dollar is going to be strong, even if it has an outbreak, a resurgence of the Delta strain, because most of the hedge fund managers and corporations in the US are seeing the US as still moving towards good vaccination levels and therefore safer and more reliable than the rest of the world, and having just had such a resurgence in their eyes, still not yet quite the economy it once was, but everyone seems to think it's, you know, a nirvana economy. Given that, they're going to be bringing funds home. And that's why the US dollar is going to be strong. It's not going to have anything to do with yields. It's not going to have anything to do with inflation expectations, although we can expect, of course, the Fed to eventually hike rates before the ECB, so that also will keep the US dollar supportive. While that's happening, there's going to be some level of confusion, which is going to lead to the hedge trade in gold continuing to come back in favour, I believe. The Australian market will remain under enormous pressure now as these lockdowns look to be extended. So the Australian domestic economy is suffering. The export sector will remain strong, and that can mask the overall aggregate GDP in a favourable way if you like big numbers, in an unfavourable way if you really want to know what's going on in an economy. And it's just that Australian stock market sentiment here in Australia was so bullish that there was nothing else left to buy, and therefore once everyone who wants to buy has, it becomes nothing but a sea of potential sellers, hence the vulnerability in the Australian market, particularly with lockdowns and a resurgence Delta everywhere. People worry about global growth, that'll weigh on the Australian dollar as well. In terms of sterling bouncing around a little bit, but I think overall the US dollar strength will continue to dominate. And I think the UK is having its biggest surge this year, or since February, in COVID cases just as it reopens. So it's a bit risque there on what the future may hold. Europe, battered by those floods, those tragedies, hopefully we'll be recovering from that quite quickly. But again, we're just going to have these rolling disruptions, supply chain disruptions around the world for another year at least. I mean, it's not as if the whole world's about to get vaccinated. And the big mistake a lot of the big investment banks and our other competitors have made is in thinking that vaccinations equal economic growth, which they don't. And that you just have to take that out of your mindset and your strategy planning. The strategy at the moment, defensive. I think stock markets have a lot further to fall, and the potential is it turns into a 10 to 15% correction. So it's something to be mindful of. Hope you enjoy the rest of your day. Clifford Bennett, Chief Economist, ACY Securities.